Hello and welcome to Shaking the B2B Tree, the podcast that brings you real stories, strategies and lessons from trailblazing marketers that think and act differently to achieve success. We'll be revealing practical solutions and valuable insights from the best in business to business, as they discuss their specialisms, share what works, what doesn't, and the lessons they've learned. Whether it's authentic storytelling, creating meaningful content, or generating real thought leadership, our guests have insights that can help you on the way to your next B2B marketing breakthrough. So let's get into today's conversation and see what we can shake loose. None of us can escape the fact that AI is having a massive impact on our daily lives, both in and out of work. But how can B2B marketers best use AI in their roles to help make their teams and their own work more effective? To explore this, I'm joined today by self-confessed AI convert Jason Davis de Cruz, who is Head of Marketing at M247, one of the UK's top connectivity and cloud services providers. And also adding to the conversation is Scout's own AI innovator, Claire Lamb. Welcome to you both. All right, Jace, it's great to have you with us on the podcast today. If you could just start off by telling us a bit about yourself and also about M247, who you work for.
So I'm a very seasoned marketeer. I've been in this industry now for probably just under 30 years now. You know, you're talking to a guy who started work when even email didn't even exist on the World Wide Web. So we've come a heck of a long way to where we are today. I'm head of marketing for M247. They are a business connectivity provider. Some people would class us as a managed service provider, which is acceptable, I suppose. We provide, like I say, business connectivity, but we also provide cloud solutions and cybersecurity as well. So it's a full service wrap around those three key services.
Okay, great. Excellent. So good. And you're in good company age-wise, don't worry.
Oh, good.
You're at home.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us what you're listening to at the moment. What's your favourite podcast and why?
Oh, so I've always been into my current affairs and politics. I have to confess, you're talking to a guy who's probably got Sky News on rotate in the background. So I'm very much into my politics podcasts. So all about politics on YouTube is one that I watch. It's Rory Stewart and the Labour's Alistair Campbell. There we go. Those two guys.
Yeah.
So you've got a real staunch Labour press officer who worked for Tony Blair, and Rory Stewart is very much on the more compassionate side of the Conservative Party, and they're both having some really candid conversations about the politics of the day. It's a fantastic podcast to watch and listen to. So I'm very much into that, and there is an American version of it as well. So I was quite heavily into that, particularly during the American presidential election. Getting their take on how they thought the election was going. So yeah, a dose of Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart is my preferred go-to podcast.
God, I bet that the American version during the election would have been pretty. Start to try and analyze that.
It was. I think it was interesting watching the podcast because leading up to the election, everybody was convinced that it would not be a Trump return, and everybody was really bigging up Kamala Harris and what a great campaign she'd had with such short notice. And it was going back to the podcast after the results had come through, and the look of just complete loss and shock. And I think they didn't know what to say to each other because they both got their predictions so wrong. I think we all did when we started looking at results, but we didn't just get it wrong by a small amount. We had, in terms of the electoral college votes, it was a whitewash. So it just another podcast I did get into as well was Alan Lichtman. And he's a lecturer at Washington. I think it's Washington University, and he's got a model where he's accurately predicted the last 12 or 13 presidential election results using a keys to the White House algorithm. He got it wrong. right? So
Wow.
he went quiet on his podcast for a while as well,
So
while he
this is
tried to work
great.
out why he got that so wrong. So
Yeah.
again, it was interesting to see how he was going to come back in his podcast as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of material at the moment on the politics side of things. I think it was after you told me that the other week. I haven't listened to that one, but I've been listening to Americast, which is a BBC thing, and it's just like the weekly, demystifying what's gone on in the week. But I actually think podcasts are a really good medium for politics because it is difficult to follow and it's difficult to understand. And if you just listen to the news, you just get kind of you get the sort of the bare analysis of it, and it can be quite scary and off-putting. Whereas I think it's a bit more of an entertaining way of looking at it and listening to experts that kind of see through some of the messages that are pushed out there. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I agree, and it's less spin. It's much more raw in terms of its discussion. So viewers or listeners are actually getting more honest narrative around it, because you can more or less say what you want to say on some of these podcasts. There's no bleeping, there's no editing to a degree. So you tend to get more of an honest view through a podcast as opposed to maybe watching the news or Question Time or something like that.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Mm.
Okay, right. So we're going to start off by really looking at the theory and I suppose the why behind the use of AI in B2B marketing. And it's something that obviously we're all kind of grappling with, what to use it for and what not to use it for. And Jace, you're somebody who's kind of basically taken the bull by the horns, I guess, and really embraced it. So we're keen to see what that's involved and how you've gone about it. But let's start off by thinking about what are the challenges B2B marketers face that you think AI can really, really help with most.
I'm going to come at it from creating a strategy, which should come as a natural thing to do for somebody in my position as a head of marketing, but you'd be quite surprised just how much more depth you could give things like a strategy for the business to then obviously understand with more clarity. Before, a year ago, we were going through some structural changes in the business, and I needed to create a marketing plan to then obviously carry those changes forward into the market and around the business. And one of the challenges that I found was that previous plans that I'd done they delivered what they were supposed to do, but with the scale of the changes that we were going through, I needed a better plan, a better strategy, something that had more depth to it, something that had more number crunching, more longer term vision in it. And that would have been a difficult thing for me to do just by myself, and even getting my team involved, it would have been quite time consuming. So I needed to be able to respond quite quicker with a more detailed plan. And this is where AI for me really came into its own. And I was introduced to AI as a more effective tool through some of the consultants that were advising us on our changes. And she was so open about the fact that she used AI. She showed me her platform and she says, look, this is how I use it. And I really recommend you use it in the same way that I do. And I've never looked back, never looked back. And after all the consultants that I've worked with over the years, and I've always been a bit funny about them because I always look at you with like a headmaster does, wondering whether you're doing the right or the wrong thing. She was such an engaging consultant and really gave me a pathway forward to become a better marketer. Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? That you can use it in that way just to improve what you already do. And I don't think it removes from the fact that, you're still bringing your experience and you're still bringing your lens to it. But the fact it's almost that it's having that conversation with somebody else that also understands. So understands challenges, understands the situation you're in, and the ability for it to then come back and say, well, okay, if that's the case, then you need to be thinking about X, Y, and Z. I think that's the beauty of it, really.
She showed me, and I think that this is probably, I think it has to be a starting point for everybody. If you're going to just view AI as it's going to take my job, then you're never really going to want to fully embrace it and explore what the potential it has to help you do a better job. And that's where she helped me. She says, I'm a consultant, I'm on a day rate. I've got my own consultancy. I've got to deliver a good result for all the companies that I work with. This tool helps me do just that. But it's also the pace at which she's able to do it as well, particularly when you've got a lot of companies that are going through change that needs to happen quite quickly and they don't have that luxury of time, and also maybe shouldn't have the luxury of having a big wide team around her. So she showed me that AI can improve on what you do. If you're good, you can be brilliant, and that's where it started.
That's really good. And I think, you hit on a really good point, which is, if you're working at the sort of strategic level, it does get a bit more lonely because yes, your team can help you, but you can't always rely on them for that sort of like peer level insight or sounding board that you might need when you're developing a strategy. And then, other areas of the business can be useful, but they don't necessarily understand the marketing perspective. So, I get that. And I think I would say the same in terms of how I use it from a business planning perspective and stuff like that, or how we're trying to use it more. I think it's really useful for that kind of stuff because it just gives you that kind of reflective perspective on stuff.
It does. It really
Definitely.
comes into its own, particularly
Yeah.
around strategy and even down to number crunching and,
Mm.
really helping you with that granular detail that you have to put into a strategy if anybody's going to take that strategy seriously.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's also the testing of that strategy. So once you've written it, once you've used AI to help you create it, it's also the ability for you to go back to it and say, right, okay, this is what the strategy looks like now. Does it work? Is it fit? Are there elements that are missing? It's its ability to spot the gaps before the board does or before one of your other teams do. It's that
100%. I said to my team, guys, you need to use AI like I do. Embrace it, and use it, like you says, to identify gaps to make it better. And I said quite openly, if you don't use AI to scrutinize your own work, I will be. So I'm definitely going to come back at you with something. So close the gaps before you send it to me, and hopefully we'll get the job done quicker.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that takes us on to the next point, really, which I think if you look at the wider adoption of AI, across marketing, across B2B marketing, we can't ignore the fact that a big focus is on the kind of replacement of human skill sets. Writers being replaced by AI. Designers, designers and creators being replaced by AI. And there's a lot of negativity around that. But actually, what you're talking about is more using AI to refine processes and hold a mirror up to the stuff that is being done, rather than being the kind of the replacement origination tool for content and stuff like that. Is that right? Is that how would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with it's definitely there to help refine, it's there to help improve. I definitely don't believe that we're at that stage yet where it's a, a replacement for people's jobs. It's definitely not that intuitive. It hasn't got to the stage where I could say, bye bye, Mr. Graphic Designer, bye bye, Mr. Content Writer or Miss Content Writer. I don't need you anymore now because I've got these AI tools. You can tell straight away when somebody has just taken something from AI and just given it to you without doing anything with it, without refining it, or they start it themselves and they refine it. It's definitely not at that stage where it's, from my perspective anyway, where it replaces that human interaction, because you can tell straight away if it's just taken from AI and given to the end user, because it doesn't get to that standard where it needs to be.
It's quite interesting. There's a HubSpot survey. I was looking at kind of stats around AI and marketing, and there was a HubSpot survey that they did earlier in the year, and it said, bear in mind this was in the US, so it wasn't global or in the UK, but it said 50% of marketers voiced concern that AI will replace their job. But in the same survey, 68% said AI has helped them grow their careers. I just thought, isn't it interesting? There's still the fear. Everyone's still thinking, well, if I don't do this manually, I'm going to lose my job. But actually, once you get into it, you start to realize that actually it just makes you better at it.
100%. I think it's a very short-sighted business that thinks that what we can do now is adopt a load of AI tools, because we've got to bear in mind that those tools still need to be used by somebody.
Yeah.
And basically just think that that's the way forward. What AI does is improve your productivity, make you a better marketing person, a better creative, a better strategist. It just helps you become better and quicker. And like you said before about making AI work harder, you know make it question itself. When you make AI question itself, it comes back at you with something even better. And then you question it again, and you make it feel like it's going mad rather than you. And then all of a sudden, you've got quite a good strategy there in front of you, or you've got quite a good bit of content there. And that's because you've gone back as a human being to refine it as much as the AI has done it for you.
Yeah, so you're challenging the AI, aren't you? Really, that's what you're saying. You almost like trying to break it in a way with what it's thrown at you, and using it in a sort of multifaceted way rather than just going, right, give me this, and then taking it and using it or adapting it a little bit. There's many layers to it by the sound of it.
It's machine learning ultimately, isn't it? And the only way it learns is by questioning what it's done.
Yeah.
You've got to feed the algorithm, as they keep saying sometimes, so it learns and it understands and it gets to know that you better, and it gets to know what you want. And if you just accept everything it does, it's never going to improve.
No.
I think that's a really
No.
good point. It's the ability to go back and ask and ask and ask. I was using it yesterday I was trying to formulate a social post, and I knew what I wanted to write, but what I needed was the stats to back it up. Now, my maths is atrocious. I freely admit that. And I asked it, find me an event that took 500 days so I could relate it to the thing I was writing about. And it came back with something that added up. I had to get my calculator out, and I had to add it up, and it was like, that's 800 days. I asked for 500. And then when you start throwing it back, it's like, I'm really sorry about that. You're right, my maths is off.
Yeah.
It's not just taking face value as it is the constant. I like the idea of when you're saying it's machine learning. Effectively, that's what we're doing. It's machine learning.
And it's still a baby. And
Yes.
that's why it's not in that position to become a fully grown adult that can take your job. We're so in the early stages. It's still in the bottle at the moment, I would say. And it's got a long way to go. But like you just says, it can give you some blatantly wrong answers. And it jumps out and you go, I never asked for that. And you go back and you go, I didn't ask you for that. And then, like you said, he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. And then I'll recalculate. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a very polite baby.
It's very polite.
But it does eventually get round to giving you the right answer.
It does. Eventually. Yeah. No,
eventually.
Yeah. Excellent. Good. I mean, how do you think things might change in the future? In that regard. Obviously, like you said, it's a baby now. When it gets to be adolescent and throwing its toys around or whatever, I mean, maybe it's difficult to kind of predict that far. But do you have any kind of view as to how how using AI and B2B marketing might change over the next 5 years, say?
I mean, again, like I say, it's growing, it's developing, it's just gonna get better and better at what it does. I mean, if I was to look at, let's just say, the creative side of what AI can do, you can't just create content at first draft from AI, and it can be quite a long process to finally get what you want. And even when you do think you've got what you want, it doesn't still feel quite right. So I think in terms of it being able to deliver what you want quicker and more in line with what your expectations are is where it can definitely see those improvements coming over the next few years. So I would definitely say improved output on a creative level. I mean, you see all these new versions of, say, ChatGPT now. I think they're on version 4.5. That goes, and they call it deep learning. So it goes into a lot of real deep analysis, and I think if in the scientific world, I think it might be something that it's more geared up for that. I don't think I need to go into that level of requirement from it, but I would just probably say how it's going to change over the coming years is just to get better and quicker at what it does and be able to give you what you want, maybe first or second time round rather than sixth or seventh. And I still don't see it as a job replacement tool at the moment.
Listen, I mean, if you think about it, you know, okay, we admitted at the beginning that we're all quite old. And you said freely, Jace, that, you know, there was no email. There was no email when I started working. And, you know, we had to, I think I said this to you the other day, Rob, you know, when we first started, one of our jobs was to send out press releases. Well, to do that, we did it by fax. You know, we literally, and you had to stand by the fax machine with a single press release, and there was, you know, triple the amount of press. It would take you all day to send it out to 60 journalists. When the internet came along, it just stopped us from having to do that. We just sent it out at the touch of a button. But if you think about the advent of the internet, that it was the same conversation we were having. Is it going to replace us? You know, and the internet at the beginning, there was no way it was going to replace us because it was great for comms, but it didn't really do much else. And now over the last, however long it's been, 30 years, it's changed and refined its ability to help. And you know, I suspect that's probably the same with AI, that, you know, in 30 years time, it will have refined the process.
I think we're humans. We always assume the worst first time round. You know, it's going to replace how you deliver campaigns. You know, it's going to cut out the middleman. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. But it never did. All it did was speed up the process, allow us to, you know, deliver things on a bigger scale quicker. And I still see it in the same way. When the internet first came out, it was a real clunky www dot, and then you had that screechy noise in the background because that was your connection thing going on. You know, that was your dial-up going, and, you know, waiting for all the image pages to load. And you think, you know, where's this going? You know, whoever thought that you would have an iPhone where you would watch content on it when you had a Nokia N97 with little pixels on the screen? So basically, technology has just been about, you know, I think in manufacturing, where you've got like robots and all that kind of stuff, seeing the replacement for human beings. But I think round AI, I don't see it like that at all. I don't see it as a manufacturing kind of event. It's all about what you can do up here, but it's machine learning for you.
At the end of the day, you're still going to need a good marketing brain to be able to feed the AI machine effectively.
Yeah, I mean, you know, unless you're going to walk in the office one morning and your AI just boots up and goes, right, let's redo the brand this week, you know, and starts proactively coming at you with things to do. You know, where it starts thinking for itself, and AI doesn't think for itself. I mean, maybe that's when we get into different realms of, you know, what the future means for individuals' jobs, etc. When you've got AI thinking for itself and you've got these little robots walking around the office, I don't know. We probably won't be around when that happens, to be honest with you, though.
That's true. No. I think, I mean, if you're anything like me, it's like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I haven't got the time to do this bit of the work. And you know, I think we're all in a world where we're trying to squeeze more and more things into less time. And actually, if AI can take some of the slack off that, then surely that, you know, it could be a really good thing. Even if it does say, right, Jace, today you've got to do this, this, and this, or we've got to sort this out. And actually being in a position where you don't have the Sunday night fear of what's on the list, you know, on Monday, or I've got to do my to-do list for the following week, because AI is actually automatically going to be telling you what's coming up and what you need to do. That in itself could be just a massive release of a bit of headspace, which should be good for all of us, I think. So yeah. So moving on, let's sort of move the discussion on a bit to talk, I suppose, more about kind of the usage of it. We've touched on it a bit already, but, you know, tell us, Jace, what tools have you found particularly useful? You know, what have you adopted and what's worked well for you?
So there's a range, isn't there? I mean, like you said, there's been an explosion of AI tools that are out there. I mean, I suppose in many ways, the jewel in the crown is ChatGPT. You know, and then obviously since then, the loads of apps have sprouted from that. For strategy and, you know, really getting into granular planning and number crunching and things, I use ChatGPT for that. But then you've got things like NVIDIA AI for, sticky video content creation. There's other tools around, brand, mybrand.ai, helping you create a brand. So I'm using quite a number of AI tools, all for different purposes. They've all got their own strengths. I don't think there's a one AI tool fits all for things. I mean, have you ever tried to ask ChatGPT to create you an image? It
Yes.
so gets it wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you can, and I call it the rabbit hole syndrome, where you keep going back, and 2.5 hours have passed, and it's still not giving you what you want. So it doesn't. But you've got the DALL-E app within ChatGPT that you go to that. What I've tended to find is that you've got different apps for different purposes, but rather than you give it the prompt, you tell it to give you the prompt, and they give the prompt back.
Ah.
So you tell it to tell itself. You tell it to tell itself what to do for it to give you a more accurate, better output. That's what I've learned. That whole challenge it back thing.
I've never tried that.
Yeah, it was something that the consultant told me. Challenge your AI. Just give me a prompt to create a video set in Manchester with a blue sky and flying all around loads of buildings. Now, if I'd have just said that to it, it'd probably give me something quite rubbish.
Yeah.
But it creates a more specific requirement, and you put that back in, and that's a little trick that I found that actually works quite well.
That's incredible. I've never even thought of it, but it makes complete sense because it's writing for itself, isn't it then?
And it's covering all that detail that you probably would have left out yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do I need to put in this prompt? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
write
they
it down.
And when you read the prompt back, you go, "Oh God, I wish I'd have said that."
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, clear setting on a sunny Manchester, and I thought, well, that's wrong for a start because it ain't sunny in
It's never
Manchester.
sunny.
but it gave it a go. But again, you think, oh yeah, actually, if I'd actually put that in the prompt, I would have got a better output. But you let it do the hard work.
That's a great idea. That's a really good top tip. I've not thought about it that way, but that's great.
You talked earlier a bit about ChatGPT and the sort of other tools surrounding that. I know you were saying that you've kind of invested quite heavily in ChatGPT sort of paid licenses, so that you've got that working almost like as a personal assistant to you. And that's something that you've also kind of rolled out to the wider team, I believe, as well. So I guess, going back to the point about still needing to be in control, but also adding that heart into the mix of what you do. Have you found that, using a sort of, using a personal version of ChatGPT has enabled it to learn more about you as an individual and how you think and how you work? And have you seen sort of benefits coming back from that?
Yeah. So again, it's one of those, if you go for the basic free elements of an AI tool, you really will just get the basics. It will limit the output that you're probably looking for. So we have all got licenses in the business, and I said to the guys in my team, set up your own AI assistant. It's your AI assistant. You've got somebody. I even said to them, you've got to give your AI assistant a name. You've got to create in the DALL-E, the creative side of it app, a profile picture, of which we've all got very good looking AI assistants, I might add. And they've all got names, and they all actually introduce the AI assistant through Teams to say, so mine's called Marvin, very handsome looking guy who is a fountain of knowledge as well as a fountain of youth. And yeah, it is about having that AI assistant learn more about you as an individual. So, hi, I'm Jason. I'm head of marketing. I'm in the technology industry. I work for a technology business that primary is business connectivity, clouds, services, and cybersecurity. I'm English, etc. So you're telling him, if if you want to call him, more of a profile about you, then more of a profile about the kinds of things that you want him to assist you with. So every time you go back to use the assistant, you're not having to keep re-explaining yourself. The more you just engage and talk, Marvin, just look at this for me. Marvin, just look at this for me. And he knows all about what you've done. And you can, and strangely enough, you can go into the back end, the configurator, and it's building up over time a profile of you. Oh, Jason likes Leeds United. Oh, we're not going to broadcast that bit, but never mind. Jason likes Kylie Minogue. So don't broadcast that bit either. but basically, and it's got all. He's just building it up and building it up and building it up to the point where very little repetition is involved. You can just go at it with new requirements, new requests, and the output is getting marginally better, marginally better, and marginally better. So all my guys have now got an AI assistant that I insist on them using to improve their productivity, to improve their output. But at the same time, it's not there to replace your job. Don't be lazy. It's there to help. And you can catch somebody out very quickly if they think that AI is just a nice way of giving you what you want, just like that, and they can then go have a cup of tea and then get on the internet and do some shopping.
I love that. But it is, it's you're right, I said it earlier, which is if you give me something that I know is pure AI and you've not added anything to it, I will find the gaps. So fill the gaps. And you're absolutely right. Let's go back and say that's great, but what about X, Y, and Z? So you're still having to strategically think, you're still having to question, still having to be curious, all these skills really that you need in marketing, you still have to do all of that.
100%. I'm just at the stage, I think we all are. We're coming to the end of the financial year. We're all about budgets. I'm all about and I'm, I have to be honest with you, number crunching is not my strongest point because I always question whether I've got that number right. So I always have to get verified by my colleagues in finance, which is what I should always do. But what I say to them now is look, let me do a bit of the hard work. Let me work with my AI assistant to help me get some numbers down that you can then look at for me. I wouldn't have done that before. And I would have been very reliant on colleagues and taking them away from what they were doing to help me do what I need to get done. So, it's great for things like that. It's not just helping you do a job better, but equally not drawing on other resources as well that they need to be focusing on.
It's actually that example. It's helping you actually build your own skill set, isn't it? So it's kind of assisting you to do something that you normally would just pass over.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best thing about it is, again, back in the day, when you had to look at some numbers and they go, no, change that number, then you have to start recalculating all over again. And you're like, oh, I've got to do this all over again. With AI, you can just go back to the AI and go, look, just change that and give me a new recalculation. And again, it's, check it, always check it, but it's done quicker there within about 10 seconds. And you just keep working at it like that.
And it's great, but I mean, if you take that scenario, it's going to be what it is. It's really useful for, okay, this is what I think is going to happen. Now give me what the worst case scenario could look like. Now give me the best case scenario. So you've got a rate, whereas before you probably just would have written one plan or whatever that is. Now you've got three options of three different ways, which means that actually down the line, if something happens, you can react quicker. You can, God forbid, we get another COVID or something, where everything had to get rewritten and replanned and reforecasted. Being able to use an AI just to say, actually, this is what's happening. What does it mean for me in 6 months' time? It's that great.
Yeah,
you're right.
and you're not starting all over again. Within your AI assistant, you can set up projects. All the conversations, and that's what they call them, conversations, have taken place. You just go back into it, and unlike a human being who has to think, God, what did I do 6 months ago? The AI assistant is there like it was just a minute ago. Jump straight back into it, and you start where you left off, and that's the brilliance of the AI tools.
Maybe there's an appeal particularly for sort of the over 50s, 50 and upwards, or people skirting around that age.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's there's that support as well.
Yeah.
That silent
Second.
support.
Support. I do complete digressing. I do have a friend that uses it for emotional support. So she's like, if she's had an argument with her husband, she'll go in and say, "I said this, and then he said that. Am I right?" And the AI will come back and go, "Of course you were. Of course you were right." It's like proper emotional support. It's brilliant.
My best friend uses AI to dump his girlfriends.
Oh God, there's no heart in
No,
that.
seriously. But he did it once, and he showed me, and he said, "What do you think?" I went, "You can't send that." He says, "Why not?" I says, "Since when do you say salutations, Amy? Since when do you say salutations? I mean, you're using words in your vocabulary that I know that you would never use. So why are you sending that to her? And why are you using AI in the first place to dump a girlfriend? That's really bad. That's really bad."
Yeah. What
Sorry,
not
I
to use
digress.
AI for?
No.
Yeah, it's a good point though, isn't it? It's like, but I suppose transpose that into marketing world. It does help. It can help with communication, can't it? It can help you work out what to say in different situations. How to phrase an email. I mean, we're not. This isn't a marketing specific thing, but it could be. It could obviously be a marketing email, but it's also just like, I need to say this to this person to get the best outcome. Have I addressed this correctly in this email, or is it too strong? I often use it to remove passive aggressive language from difficult emails.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. But again, I think it's one of those. What I'm conscious of is, you've got to do the little bit of the work yourself for these kinds of things. You remember when it says, "Oh God, the calculator's going to stop kids being able to add up.
Yeah.
Spell checkers are going to stop us all knowing how to spell." And I think with this now, I mean, if I've drafted emails myself and then asked it to review and refine. Please review and refine, ensuring that it's clear with a professional tone and is not passive aggressive, kind of like, say, let's just take that as an example. And it really works well. And then obviously to remember to remove the Zs if there's the odd Z in there in the wrong prioritize or whatever else, there's little refinements. But I think if you do a little bit of the work yourself, that's how you get it right, because some people just go type me an email and then they just copy and paste it, and it ends up being a complete disaster.
How's your team responded to it, and what are they using it for?
So it's a bit of a mix. I think, like you said, we've got a mix in the team. So my execs use it a lot for content creation, like copywriting, thought leadership, helping make, say, maybe a complex proposition. So let's say a product or a service that actually is quite technical, and how can you help me make it more consumer facing, that in a way that they will understand it rather than a technical person talking to you about it. So it helps in so many ways by getting content output quicker, clearer, better, more engaging. That's a great side that my team use it for. Again, the creative lead, he still uses it for inspiration. He was doing he's just creating some adverts for me now, and I said to him, "Oh, I like what you've done there, but can you change that image to this?" And I said, "Where did you find it?" And he went, "Oh no, I've got the AI tool to create it." So he's, so creative inspiration, he still uses it for that. I'm more for your number crunching, strategizing, etc., etc., and even right down to events. Put me an events checklist together. And it's fantastic. Time scales, insurance checks, safety checks, stand build, stand design, merchandise. Oh, I can go on, but it can just practically do anything and everything you ask it to do, provided you check and you make sure it's right. So my team are now fully embraced. They were a little bit nervous at first, and again, that nervousness. Oh, if it does a good job, is it going to replace me, kind of like thing? And I kept laboring the point: if you don't get it to scrutinize your work and improve it,